to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Guns, self-defense, concealed carry. This is the Patriot Defense Podcast. From the war room in Idaho's high desert, here's your host, Todd Echols.
And I am back once again. It is a windy and a cold afternoon, and I am tucked away in the war room somewhere in the high desert of southern Idaho. And it is your lucky week. Now, don't get used to this, but you're going to get 2 podcasts this week. This will be the second one. Now, it's probably not going to be a full-length podcast. I just have a little something that kind of came up in one of my classes, something I've been kind of thinking on, and that I want to bring up. And as I was going over this last night, thinking about jumping back on here and doing this, I got word of that shooting, that horrible mass shooting over in Maine. And I believe I've just done some poking around here. I believe that that is still an ongoing situation. They are still looking for the shooter. They have identified him. They are looking for that killer. That is really not going to be a topic of conversation for this podcast. It's kind of ongoing. There is a lot more to come out, I'm sure. And so we will focus on that on probably the next podcast. I've enjoyed doing these podcasts, and I've said it before. I tend to like to stay away sometimes. I get tired of the political stuff and the news stories, although, a mass shooting, that's a big news story, so I will end up focusing on that. But I do like to talk about the, different firearms. I like to talk about the different training drills and tactics and techniques and the things that I do in class. And then I do like to spout my opinions on some training issues and answer some questions for some people. So I'm just kind of looking at my notes here. So as you go out and you start to shoot, especially if you're a new shooter, you go out and you start to shoot and you do all the really important things that everyone should do and everyone should return to and always focus on is the firearm safety and the shooting fundamentals. The fundamentals being what? The fundamentals being grip, stance, sight picture, and trigger press. And those are the 4 basic elements that make up your shooting platform, right? Those are the fundamentals, the core principles of shooting. Now, as I get people that want to carry on and they want to take more classes and they want to learn how to shoot better, quicker, faster, repeated follow-up shots, that sort of thing. And I've been going through some of that with some of my shooting groups as of late. And I get people that talk about as far as lining up the sights. How do I line up the sights? How do I shoot quickly? And how do I line up the sights perfectly? And when do I use them? And when don't I use them? And there's just a lot of different takes on that, right? And so I guess the question here is, should you see the sights when shooting fast? Whether that be shooting quickly or coming from the draw and presenting the firearm on target. Now, a lot of this has to do with, how close the target is, how far away the target is, how small, how big the target is, that kind of thing. What exactly are you doing? So I just kind of wanted to break it down. So when you look at this, you get some people that say, I think the old school thought was you have what they call instinctive shooting, which we will talk about, this instinctive shooting. And they say, oh, when I draw from my holster, when I draw the gun and fire it, and I'm just using instinctive type shooting. And I don't use them. I don't line up the sights. I don't use the sights when I'm shooting quickly. Well, yes and no. Anytime that used to kind of be the train of thought, we called it point shooting, and that is a thing, right? But here's the thing. Anytime that you are shooting your firearm, if you bring the firearm up into your line of sight, you should be using the sights. If you're doing everything properly, you're coming from the holster, and we work on this in numerous different ways in all my classes. When you are presenting the firearm from the holster and you drive the gun out to the target, when you drive the gun out, you are bringing those sights right up into your line of sight. You are focused on the target. You bring those sights up, and those sights should line up, right? That's the way you're training yourself to do that. That's one of the ways you do that. You draw the gun, you drive the gun out, you bring it up into your line of sight, your sights are there, you can then take the shot. And with the introduction years ago, but the introduction of the red dot, that's how one of the ways I train someone to use the red dot. One of the tricks to using a red dot is to what? Is to find it, right? Is to find that red dot. And so you've got to practice it. You got to develop that muscle memory, and you bring the gun back to your chest and you drive it out into your line of sight, and you find that red dot, and you got to do it multiple times over and over and over and over again. And you train yourself to be able to have the muscle memory to pick up that red dot every time. And you can do the same thing, obviously, with iron sights. Now, I made a bunch of notes here. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about, we all know how to line up the sights on the gun, how to make a perfect sight picture. That's when your rear sight is aligned with the front sight, is aligned with the target, and all that good stuff. We've all gone over that. If not, go look it up. I've covered it before in past podcasts. So the question is, should you see the sights when shooting fast? Yes, you should. So you have what we call sight attention. That's when you're shooting at a defensive distance, versus sight focus. That's farther out, smaller targets, and I'll delve into each of those. And then you have what we call instinctive shooting. And instinctive shooting is when you shoot in unorthodox positions where you can't bring the gun up to actually acquire your sights, and that would be instinctive / almost like point type shooting. So sight attention is something you're going to use at defensive distances. So relatively up close, where you have time. Now you're going to bring the firearm up to your line of sight, whether it be from your holster or from a low ready, whatever it is, you're bringing that up, and it's up close, but yet it's defensive distance. So you're bringing it up, you're looking at the target, but you need to see your sights. Now you aren't necessarily, you're close enough, you're going to hit the target or the whatever. You're gonna hit the target with a round. You know that, but you still need to be aware of what you need to be aware of, how your sights are lined up. Now, this isn't like you're trying to take this champion winning bullseye shot, but you still need to be shooting for center mass, let's say. And when you drive the gun out, you need to be able to quickly visually check your sights to make sure they're aligned up. Now, you're not sitting there trying to dial them in perfectly, because you're going to take a quick shot, but you're a close enough defensive distance that you're going to hit, right? But you are responsible for every round that leaves your firearm. So you do need to know that what? You do need to know that your sights are lined up relatively, kind of pretty close, but you're going to get a hit onto your target. So that's what we call sight attention. When you're further away, or the target is smaller, like you have to have a more precise shot, and let's say you are further away, which would then make the target smaller, you have to pay more attention to detail. You have to pay more attention to, and you have more time to take that precise shot. You have that more time to line your sights up so a little bit better or more precisely, so that you can get that good hit. And if you refer back to yesterday's podcast where we talked about Frogman Tactical, if you're running drills like that, hopefully not with a live human being downrange, but with a target or some barrels, if you don't get the reference, check out the last podcast. You need to make sure your sights are lined up, because you're taking more precise shots, right? You're taking more precise shots. Hence the need for being able to see the sights, see that they're lined up, take that time, make sure you get a more accurate shot, because you are further away. And the more mistakes you make from further away, the more that translates into a bigger miss or a lot bigger dropped type of shot, right? Because your mistakes start out small, and the further away you get, they turn into big ones, right? They telescope out into big ones. It's like having an angle that's off a little bit over here. Well, by the time it gets, 50, 60 feet down range, it's off by a lot. So you have to dial in your shooting abilities even tighter for farther out, smaller targets, right? So that's going to be sight focus. So we talked about sight attention and sight focus. Now we're going to touch on instinctive shooting. Instinctive shooting is maybe you've been knocked to the ground. Maybe you just bring that gun from holster. And what I teach is when you draw that gun from holster, it's a 6-step process. 1, grip the gun. 2, draw it up. 3, you're dropping your elbow and you're rotating that gun forward. So if you absolutely had to take a shot at someone right there, you can do so as you drive the gun out. Now that would be instinctive type shooting. Instinctive being the gun isn't in any position for you to align those sights at all, or to get a crisp picture, or to get it's pretty close type picture. You don't get any of those, so that's going to be instinctive shooting. Now, as you take the shot from low, right, drive the gun out and bring that gun up to your sight line, up to your eyes, then it rolls, depending on how far away you are, probably pretty close. It rolls from that instinctive shooting right into that sight attention, right? So you have picked up the sights. You're not going to take the extra 3 seconds to really dial it in, but you know where your sights are sitting. You know they're sitting on center mass, and you can take those shots. So there you go. You have sight attention, which is not finely tuned sights, but it is, you're aware of where they are, you're aware of how they've lined up, and you can take the shot because you know you're on target. That's at defensive distances. And then you have sight focus, which is what you use, which is more finely attuned, dialing those sights in, making sure those sights are lined up properly, equal height, equal light, that type of thing, making sure that they are on the target, right? That's for further out shots on smaller targets, right? Space, distance buys you time to make those more precise shots, which you need to do when you're further away, versus instinctive shooting, which we just mentioned, is when you use it when you are firing the gun where you can't get the sights up into your line of sight to take a correct shot with, right? But as soon as that gun does get up into your line of sight, pick up those sights. That becomes sight attention if you're close, or sight focus if you are further out and you have some distance on your shot. So I probably just confused a bunch of you, but that's kind of that's how I break down the sights. So if you're shooting close and you're shooting fast, and I encourage the people, especially in my groups, right, when I'm running them through different drills or different courses, let's say, courses where they have far shots, they have close shots. I'm trying to get to the fact that when you're close, bam, bam. And I hate the term double tap. We'll call it like a controlled pair. But if I say 2 shots, be quick on the trigger. Now, when you're close like that, you're going to be using what? Sight attention. You're going to take the shot. You're going to see your sights drop right back down on target. When they do, you're going to pop that other round. You're going to have 2 rounds right there. Now, if I have you running halfway across the range and you have to turn and take a shot at a 2-inch circle, which I have done before, I've set that up, that's when you need to slow down and take your time. Is it a challenge? Yes, it's a challenge. You've been moving fast. You've been shooting fast. You've been running across the range. You've been possibly doing a mag change. And when you hit that distance, your heart rate is up. Take a second. A second's going to feel like a whole lot of time. Take a second or 2, dial in your heart rate, really focus, and take those shots. Take those precise shots. That's the way it is. That's the way it should be. That's how you break it down. And I try to encourage my students, like, you're up close, bang, bang. When you get over here, slow down. When you're up close, bang, bang. Right? That's the way it should be. You're going to hit your target. Make sure you see your sights. You are responsible for every round that leaves your firearm. If you're just hammering that trigger and you're not seeing the sights, you have no idea where you're shooting. And I get that all the time. We have students sometimes that they'll get excited. They're running this course. They'll run up close to a target and bang, bang, and they'll miss with both shots. And I'm like, how did you miss that? And then they'll tell me, I didn't look at my sights. I didn't see my sights. Now, again, you don't have to slow down to line those up, but you need to see your shots, especially after that second round. Take a shot, and you need to see so you know where that second round is going to go. You can't just smash the trigger a couple times as quickly as you can, or smash that trigger repeatedly and hope you get all shots on target. You are responsible for those. It can be done. It takes practice. Anybody, my friend, anybody can draw that gun and go bang and get a shot on a piece of paper. That's fine. Anyone can do that. Anyone can do that, especially if you're close. Take the time, learn how to use your sights, learn how to do it correctly. Let's be responsible. It is a skill. Let's treat it as such. Put in the time, put in the work, put in the effort, and you can accomplish all kinds of stuff. So there you go. There's your second podcast. I thought it went pretty good. It's like my little skill. It's like my little skill of the week. I don't know. You probably shouldn't expect these every week, but there you go. It's your skill of the week. Maybe it's your skill of the month. And maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. I'm sure there's 1,000 different takes on exactly what I just talked about. So maybe you do something different that works for you. And if you do, I'd love to hear about it. Call me, text me, area code 620-794-6223. It's area code 620-794-6223. Call me, text me, let me know. You guys have a great week. Have a great weekend. We kind of had this Arctic blast hitting the U.S. If you're somewhere where there's snow, man, stay inside where it's warm. I know I started our wood stove yesterday, so share the podcast. Find us on all the social medias, I almost said Facegram, the Facebook, the Instagram, the TikTok. I appreciate talking to each and every one of you that gets hold of me and tells me listen to the podcast. I do appreciate those interactions. I know after yesterday's podcast, that may not seem like it. And I do. Just don't get crazy with me, man. Just don't get crazy with me. So until then, everyone have a good week. Talk to you later. Bye.